You may have heard accusations that Trump is a Russian spy or that he works for Putin or that he has some kind of ties to Putin or in some way you have heard some kind of accusation that Trump is tied to Russia in some bad way, in some way that is corrupt. Now, I personally don't believe that. I have not seen any evidence of that. In fact, I'm generally of the opinion that if someone puts out evidence that turns out to be false, the chances of any actual evidence coming out later is so much lower, because I've seen that. It's kind of like if some guy is accused, like if a cop brings in a guy for dealing heroin, and then you later learn that the cop was the one that planted heroin on the guy and he faked the evidence. I mean, I suppose it's still technically possible that the guy was dealing heroin, but at that point, like, we can pretty much say it didn't happen if people are going out and faking evidence or really reaching for things that just don't make any sense. So that's essentially my view on that. But there are people that will go out and accuse Rand Paul, of all people, of being a Russian puppet of working for Putin. And it seems that this one guy here, Greg O'Lear, is one of them. I have no idea who he is. Apparently he wrote a book on the Trump-Russia thing, and that seems to be all he's really known for, all the verified checkmark means. That's all I can tell, as far as I know. But he has a thread here on Twitter, a list of claims, or a list of evidence supposedly signifying that Rand Paul is not actually a libertarian, which is why he puts libertarian in quotes there, to imply that he's not really one, but he is actually working for Vladimir Putin, as the late John McCain famously charged. All signs apparently point to yes, but we're going to go through and see what his evidence is, because this is kind of hilarious and just a bit of a reach. So I guess we'll just go through one at a time. Here, as the indispensable Julia Davis News points out, Rand Paul is Rand Paul being feted on Russian state TV for agreeing with Trump's asinine decision to withdraw immediately from Syria per the request of Putin. Erdogan, not a good look. Now, pulling out of Syria seems to benefit Russia, but this is one of those situations where just because you hold a position that another person you don't like also holds does not make you a bad person, does not make you in league with them. Apparently, it looks like he was on RT, or that doesn't even look like RT actually, just from that image. But he was on some kind of Russian TV saying like, "Hey, this is a good thing," and that does not signify any like, "Oh, he's working for Putin," because I watch RT on occasion. I mean, just like any news source out there, I don't rely on them for everything. I don't watch everything they do, and that's my only news source kind of thing. Obviously, if you're going to watch anything, whether it be Fox, CNN, MSNBC, RT, whatever, you can't just rely on that one thing for news because they all have their biases, and RT is obviously biased in favor of the Russian government. That's where they get their money from, and that's something you have to keep in mind. But there are people on there all of the time that are talking like, yeah, U.S. imperialism is bad, like U.S. Foreign policy is not good. And this is a situation where apparently both Russia at the moment and Rand Paul overlap because libertarians agree on that issue. So if you're going to come and say to me that a libertarian is actually working for Russia, what you have to do is prove to me that he is in league with Russia and not that he's a libertarian. Because if you pick a position where they both overlap, you're not going to get anything. Like you haven't proved anything. It's kind of like if I were to pick some position saying like open borders is a good thing. Like if I were to come out and say open borders is a good thing, no doubt I would get accusations that I'm working for Soros, because that is an issue that I'm pretty sure Soros believes in, and apparently one person can't say that without agreeing with Soros. And same thing goes with the Koch brothers. Like, I'm against government interference I'm against government policy that attempts to save the environment. I don't think it works. In fact, I think it does the opposite. I am pro-environment. I am not for government interference. Like, I'm not for any of the policies so far of the U.S. government supposedly trying to save the environment. Apparently, that makes me a Koch puppet, that kind of thing. Like, it's something where, again, you can have two positions, or you can have a position that a bad person, or at least someone you dislike, also agrees with. That doesn't mean you're working for them. That doesn't mean you're a puppet. It could be. But again, I need evidence, not speculation. Number 2, since the day in March 2017 when John McCain called him out on the floor of the UN Senate for objecting to Montenegro joining NATO, Rand Paul has been a veritable lobbyist for the Kremlin. On matters large and small, Paul has supported Moscow's positions. Again, it depends on what those positions are. Like, I have yet to see Rand Paul coming out in support for anti-libertarian positions that Russia also supports. Like, show me that. Show me a few positions where Rand Paul agrees with Russia that is not a libertarian position, and I will agree with you, but he has yet to do that. Rand Paul has pushed for open and active dialogue with the nation that engaged in cyber warfare against us. He's arguing for the lifting of sanctions on Russian individuals close to Putin. So what he's saying is he is, like, what he's summarizing here is he's saying Rand Paul is against, like, declaring war on Putin. He's against nuking Russia. He's saying, like, yeah, anyone we want to talk to, whether, like, good or bad, we should talk to them. It's kind of like North Korea. Like, if you're saying we shouldn't nuke them and we should instead talk with them and try to figure things out and try to get try to work with them, like, diplomatically, apparently that means you're pro North Korea. But that apparently seems to be what's happening here, that if you're arguing the anti-war libertarian position, apparently that makes you a Russian puppet when it comes to Russia. Rand Paul was one of the few politicians who defended Trump after his disastrous showing in Helsinki when Trump kissed the ring of the Russian dictator. Now, what exactly happened there? I can't remember which one the Helsinki summit was, but apparently I think Trump said something along the lines of, like, we shouldn't declare war on Russia, something like that. He said good things about Putin. And it's like, when you're right next to a leader, you're going to say good things. It's like the fact that Russia or Trump will say good things about Israel when he's in Israel. He will also have good relations with Palestine when he's talking with the Palestinian leader. Things like that. Like, that's just generally what you do. If the leader of a foreign country is right next to you, you're not going to badmouth them right there. Or at least if you want any kind of, like, non-warlike relations with them. Rand Paul joined Trump in seeking the revocation of a security clearance on John O'Brien after the former CIA director denounced the Helsinki summit. Now, he may as well have announced this in Russian. I don't know what that means, the last sentence there means. But apparently, if you're against John Brennan having security clearance, that must mean you are pro-Putin. And now I read up on this. I'd actually, like, do a bit of background research on this because I didn't follow this when it happened. But apparently, John Brennan has security clearance, like government security clearance, despite no longer working for the U.S. government. So it's kind of like, if I were to quit my job, I mean, I've worked 2 jobs where I have the badge that can get me into certain areas. That can get me like through certain doors, and it's kind of like if I were to quit that job and then someone were to say we should remove this guy's ability to get into the employees only area when he's no longer employed. Like, that's essentially what Rand Paul was saying, and apparently that's, like, I don't get that. The dissemination of Putinist propaganda is bad enough, but let us not forget that Rand Paul has served as a Trump-Russia intermediary, on one occasion flying to Moscow to deliver a handwritten letter from the president to Putin. Now, I will have to fact-check that because maybe it is true. I couldn't find anything on it. I looked it up a little bit, and I couldn't find anything on it. But again, it's something that it sounds bad. Now, obviously, that is something that looks like actual evidence. But again, like, I need some kind of... I couldn't find anything that says it happened exactly like this guy said it happened. So, like, I have to dismiss it. If I can't find anything, like, apparently he delivered a handwritten letter to Putin, I need evidence of that. Did he fly to Moscow? I found some evidence that he's flown to Moscow before, and it's like, okay, everyone does that. That's why if you ever go on, like, a right-wing page, you'll see pictures of pretty much, like, every major politician you've ever heard of next to Putin, because pretty much everyone has met Putin. Like, Chuck Schumer has met Putin, Pelosi has met Putin. So that's something where it's like, oh, if you've met Putin once, that's not surprising. Like, that's something that happens. Oh yeah, this is what the one I found, at least. He visited Moscow on August 6, 2018. Engagement was his reason for making the journey. It was in service to engagement that the trip was paid by the Cato Institute, the libertarian think tank underwritten by the Koch brothers. But this is about more than U.S. dark money. Now again, Cato Institute, Koch brothers, that's a libertarian organization, and as far as I can tell, they're anti-Trump and anti-Russia. Like, the Koch brothers spent something like $900 million campaigning against Trump. So the thing is, if they're the ones sending Rand Paul, why is such an anti-Russian organization and an anti-Trump organization sending him to Moscow? That's what I think is important to realize, that, like, you don't want to take someone that is super anti-Trump, that is apparently giving money to Rand Paul to go to Moscow. Like, that's That's no evidence right there. What you're saying is that apparently a bunch of anti-Trump organizations are secretly funding pro-Trump, pro-Russia propaganda. I don't get that. Rand Paul met with Sergei Kislyak, former Russian ambassador to the U.S., the same Sergei Kislyak who in 2016 held illicit meetings with Paul Manafort, Jared Kushner, Jeff Sessions, Carter Page, and Mike Flynn, to name a few, who was photographed falling with Trump in the Oval Office. Okay, so everyone met with this guy. This is another one of those things where, like, this former Russian ambassador to the U.S. Okay, a Russian ambassador to the U.S. Everyone has met this guy. Like, I can find you, I mean, I'm not going to, but at the moment, but look it up. Just do a Google search, and you will probably find tons of pictures of this guy with all kinds of big people that are clearly anti-Trump, clearly anti-Russia. Like, this is what happens. This is something that happens in politics. These people meet with everyone, and of course, whenever they're meeting with people, there's usually someone to take a picture. So it's like, oh, look at this picture. This guy was with another guy. It's like, okay, if you can find a picture of them, like in a hotel room or like clearly trying to hide, like make sure no one's looking at him, kind of thing, then I would believe you. But it's like, oh, these two people met once. Okay, like everyone's met everyone at this point in politics. Like, if you're a major, like, especially, again, Russian ambassador, it's not like he met some random Russian guy. He met the Russian ambassador to the U.S. That happens. Like, if you're a Russian ambassador to the U.S., your job is to probably meet with a lot of politicians, a lot of U.S. politicians. What sort of engagement did Paul seek from Kislyak? Seriously, the only reason you meet with that multi-chin jackoff is to do to him what Rand Paul's neighbor did to Rand Paul. Okay, obviously this guy, like, this is just him putting in his political bias, putting him in his, like, oh, I hate this guy, therefore anyone that talks to him is a bad person. He's the former Russian ambassador to the U.S. Like, whatever you think of him, that is his position, and that's part of the job. 10. Moscow's point person for the meeting was Konstantin Kosachev, a Russian senator and the chair of its Foreign Affairs Committee. Kosachev is a staunch ally of Vladimir Putin, was among the Russian politicians placed on the U.S. sanctions list of 2016. Here they are. Okay, Rand Paul met with a Russian guy, met with a Russian senator. Again, this is a picture. Like, and look, in front of all these news stations, you really think, like, if they're secretly, like, corrupt, like, if they're actually corrupt, that they would do this in front of all these cameras. This is something that happens. Like, I need evidence, because as soon as someone comes out with this accusation that, oh, this person met with this person, what you see in the replies section is a ton of people posting, like, photographic evidence of the guy they're accusing of being a bad person with tons of other people all across the political spectrum. Like, this is something that just happens. And again, this isn't even, like, he's on tweet number 10 now. This is the same as, like, 6 other tweets earlier, that a picture with someone means nothing. That's the thing. When he returned from Moscow, Rand Paul went golfing with Trump, lobbying the president to allow Kosachev and other sanctioned Russian politicians to visit the United States, because engagement. Okay, people met with Russia. Like, I think this is this guy saying that apparently meeting Russian people is bad. Like, that is something that happens in politics. You meet with people. Trump met with Kim Jong-un. There are tons of pictures, if I look it up, of Trump meeting Kim Jong-un, and apparently he's working with North Korea. He's in league with North Korea now. He's secretly he is secretly allied with the North Korean dictator, apparently, according to this guy. This is the thing. Pictures mean nothing. People meeting mean nothing. Now, if you were to come up with evidence saying, like, oh, these two people met in a hotel room behind closed doors, no one knew about it, and then later, like, WikiLeaks put it out, or someone put it out that wasn't meant to go out, yeah, then I would believe that. Then I would understand that. But when everyone's saying this stuff is happening, and when it's all over news, and when it's two major political figures, like 2 senators, yeah, like, that stuff happens. Big deal. Here's where it gets interesting. Remember the Steele dossier and the meeting Michael Cohen was alleged to have had in Prague? The meeting that was dead to rights collusion. Guess who Cohen was alleged to have met with? Again, alleged. Like, this has nothing to do with Rand Paul. I'm reading through this. I'm waiting for the name Rand Paul to come up, and I see nothing. Again, the Putin circuit, who allegedly set up the key meeting between Trump's people and the Russians 2 years ago, is the same guy Rand Paul met with in Moscow this past year. Yes. He's a Russian ambassador, yes. Like, these people are all in government positions, and that is their job, to foster meetings with one another. Because it'd be weird if Trump, like, did this with Russia as opposed to everyone else. But again, Trump meets with everyone. It's like senators meet with everyone. They're meeting with people all over the world in all kinds of different governments. That's what it's about, talking to them. Like, just because you can talk, like, would you really say that Trump is working with, like, what's his name, Justin Trudeau of Canada? It's like he's not allied with him. He's like, that's diplomacy. That's what happens. You talk to other people. No doubt there's a perfectly innocent explanation for all this. Yes, diplomacy. Like, it's something where I'm very skeptical of government power, and I'm very skeptical of the government trying to say, like, oh, this is for your own good, or this is all stuff that, like, don't look at this. Like, this is all fine. This is just engagement. But yes, in this case, it literally is. And that John McCain was joking when he called out Rand Paul for being a Russian asset on the floor of the U.S. Senate. I mean, engagement. Yeah, pretty much. Like, that's what happened. Because the thing is, again, it's weird. It would be weird if this was very unique, but this is not a unique thing. Everyone does this all the time. This is not unique. Before we can write off Rand Paul as a useful idiot rather than an active Russian asset, however, we need to better understand the relationship between the senator from Kentucky and Konstantin Kosachev. Oh, what was that? Come on, scroll. What did they discuss in Moscow? What was in that letter? Why is Paul so eager to have him visit the United States? And when and where did Rand Paul and Konstantin Kosachev first meet? That brings up a whole list of questions. Have you ever been to Prague? You can read the full piece about it here. Okay, so he ends here. There's the whole... Okay, here's another one. This one, I bookmarked this in my memory because this... There's the whole Ron Paul Russia rabbit hole. Apparently, according to this guy, the Russians liked his dad so much they promoted him to former U.S. senator. And there's a picture there. You can see, I'm not even going to click on it because then I might have you to get out of it based on my setup here. But yeah, you can see basically there, if you can in the video actually, right there it says, it's clearly on RT. Ron Paul's on RT every so often. And you know how they have the name at the bottom and then the person's position? It says former U.S. senator. He was actually a congressman. Like, big deal, someone screwed up. I don't think putting him as a senator, like, calling him a senator instead of a congressman is going to change many people's minds. Like, I don't think that's going to influence anything, calling someone a senator, not a congressman. Like, I don't know about you, but when I hear that, like, if I were to think someone's a congressman and then find out they were a senator, I wouldn't be like, whoa, like, I suddenly respect this person a lot more. I don't get it. Someone screwed up on RT. It's a government-run media organization. No surprise there. It was probably an intern. They screwed up. I guess this stuff runs in the family, or maybe libertarian means something different in Russia. Rand inherited his Kremlin family from Dad Ron. Okay, so again, Kremlin has a history of recruiting children of successful assets. So again, they have yet to provide any actual evidence. Ron Paul was on RT, and they got his position wrong. Like... Proof of collusion. Like, I was unaware that appearing on BBC means that apparently you're in collusion with the British government. Or appearing on NPR apparently means you're in collusion with the US government. You're a CIA spy. I don't know. And then here's more just pictures. I'm so confused here. And this, which link a helpful reader sent me. Symes is a key player in the Mayflower Hotel speech, a key Trump-Russia event. Big deal. I could probably go on all day, but I think I made my point. When John McCain accuses a sitting U.S. senator of working for Vladimir Putin, I take him at his word. Rand Paul is a traitor. Okay, so where's the evidence? Like, I got through this whole thing. It just ended. Where's the evidence? Where you found me a few things saying he's, like, fostered diplomacy with Russia, and considering there's so much, like, anti-diplomacy right now that we should, like, nuke him, or we should, like... In my opinion, like, I want good connections with Russia. I think it would be nice to have, like, a good relation with Russia. And this is coming from someone that every time I hear Putin doing something, like, Putin's pretty funny when he does, like, he'll do certain funny things that I find pretty hilarious, like trolls and that. But overall, like, the libertarians don't like Putin. Like, Rand Paul, I don't think, likes Putin. Most of these people don't like Putin. Seems to be a pretty awful guy. And especially Russia, like, they're pretty anti-communist, which is nice because they've had such a bad history of it. But there's still so many bad things with them. Like, to me, they're a bit too far right, in my opinion. Like, actual Russian policy is a bit too authoritarian. Not even a bit too. It's pretty dang authoritarian for me. So most people, like, you've never seen Rand Paul saying, like, yeah, Russia's a great country, we should emulate them. Like, all he's saying is we should not nuke them. We should foster diplomacy. He's the one that is going out and saying, like, yeah, we should talk instead of bombing people. And this guy's like, yeah, if we nuked Moscow, this guy seems like he would be very happy about it. And that's what it comes down to. It's like, that's how diplomacy works. It's all a bunch of people with their own special interests, or a bunch of governments with their own special interests that are sometimes at odds with other countries. They have to communicate because, again, like, with everything that's happening in the Middle East, like the U.S., was against the Assad regime for a while, and Russia was in favor of it. So it's like, obviously there's some people running into stuff there. Like, there's obviously some conflict of interest there, and that's what diplomacy is all about, to do it peacefully rather than resorting to war, especially with how powerful Russia is. Obviously they're powerful. And obviously, like, are they trying to hack into our intelligence? Yes. Are we trying to hack into their intelligence? Yes. It's like, what was revealed not too long ago? I guess it was revealed that Russia had tried to have the White House bugged, and I don't know if they're successful or not, but they tried to have the White House bugged a few years ago, and they were trying to spy on us. It's like, yeah, that's something that's bad. Like, if anyone bugged my house, I'd be pretty mad. That's obviously bad, but you have to compare it. Compared to what? Like, the U.S., this was something that just came out, I think, 2 years ago, where Angela Merkel, Chancellor of Germany, like, she's the head figure of, representative of Germany, and found out that back in, like, 2012 or something, the Obama administration had bugged her office. It's like, were we planning to attack them? Like, obviously it was bad. Like, obviously it's bad. I'm not going to necessarily defend it, but the thing that this guy is missing here is a compared to what thing. Like, if every country does it to everyone else, including their own allies, is it bad? Is it, like, sleazy? Yeah, but everyone does it, which means that is the standard. Like, that, you don't have to say it's a good thing, but that means that is the standard of relations, which means that if something happens, like if it turns out that we find another country was trying to hack into our systems, it's like, yeah, but we were trying to hack into their systems. It's something it's one of those things where everyone understands it's happening, but no one actually says anything about it, because that would mess up relations. For me, it's all, like, horrible stuff. It's all bad stuff, but you have to acknowledge that that's the standard. Like, as much as you might hate the standard, as much as the standard is corruption or whatever, you have to acknowledge that that's the standard and then compare it to what's happening. But yeah, like, I fail to see any actual evidence here. I see nothing. All I see is apparently he was on RT once, or Ron Paul was on RT once, which seems to make Rand a Russian traitor. I saw a few things saying they fostered diplomacy, which, again, the fact that they were talking about things, like, in front of everyone, in front of the news, they were all meeting together, like, I don't see that as a bad thing. And his claim was apparently he's not a real libertarian, which I find rather confusing, because he has yet to prove a single position that Rand Paul has that is not libertarian. And there are a few positions, like, libertarians criticize Rand Paul all the time for not being as libertarian as they are. Obviously, you could list a ton of things, but he doesn't do that. So I just found this interesting to go through. There were a few articles he linked there. I'm not going to go through all this stuff because it's already been 22 minutes. But I thought this was important, something to keep in mind that, yeah, just imagine being this guy. This is what, it's all guilt by association. It's all this guy met with this guy. But what he fails to keep in mind with is that everyone meets with everyone. This is nothing unusual. Like, you got to point out unusual stuff. You got to point out stuff that's not normal. If you point out stuff that's normal, everyone's going to say big deal. But that's what happens. But yeah, like the video if you enjoyed, for real, like, go down there, hit the like button. That does help, like, promote this video. That helps, I guess, the YouTube's algorithm. Like, even leaving a comment, like, promotes the video in the algorithm. Share the video, of course, that helps the most. Like if you enjoyed, subscribe for more. And thanks for watching.